From Shea Stadium in Flushing, New York, today the New York Mets host the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mets Baseball 95 is brought to you by Beechwood Aged Budweiser. It's always been true, this Bud's for you. By your local Honda dealer. By American Express. By Coca-Cola, always in the game, always Coca-Cola. And by FedEx. For documents, packages, and freight worldwide, our most important package is yours. The pitching matchup today, going after just his second win of the season, Paul Wagner, who's 1-10, and Izzy Jason makes his home appearance for the New York Mets.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another afternoon of Mets baseball. I'm Tim McCarver, along with Gary Thorne, and the much-awaited arrival of Jason Isringhausen here at Shea, his first start of the year here at the home ball yard.
And boy, would he like to cure some of the Sunday blues the New York Mets have going. Sundays have not been a pleasant day for them. 2-11, the two wins they've had on Sundays. Both have been here at Shea Stadium, but they have been outscored 62-39 in Sunday kind of contests. Jason Isringhausen knows nothing about that because this is his first appearance here at Shea Stadium. Talking with him before the game today, he's excited all over again. He's made two starts, two pretty good ones, non-decisioned in both. He'd love to put the first W up here at home.
Izzy will be starting against Paul Wagner, who is 1-10, so I guess the caption today is Izzy versus Wuzzy. And Denny Nagel, by the way, we talked about it on our broadcast last night. He will be back with the sounds and the voices of Pittsburgh right after this from Budweiser.
So he
started the Pittsburgh Pirates New York Mets game, and we promised it last night. The voices of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Denny Nagel, who pitched so beautifully last night. How many voices do you do?
Well, I don't really know how many voices exactly I'll do. I just kind of, if a movie comes out and I kind of like a character in there and whatever he does in there, I pick it up pretty quick and I'll do that one. And then from there, I'll do noises, machines, robots, a train whistle that we have in Pittsburgh. So.
Jim Gott's a robot, right? How would you do him?
Jim Gott's a robot, and he's like 6'4", pretty big guy, and he's got these size 14 shoes. So I started calling him Robo Gott, and so eventually one time Jim had to play at first base, his little bunt, and he went over to grab the ball and kind of goes like this. So he's just so big that he sounds like a robot going in there. So I started doing that one for the guys, and they kind of got a kick out of that one.
What about Kramer on Seinfeld?
Kramer on Seinfeld. One of my favorite episodes of Kramer is when he's talking about he has to wear boxer shorts because his sperm count has been pretty low, and he wants to carry on the Kramer legacy in the family. And so he's going nuts. Kramer all he wears is jockeys, and these boxers are driving him nuts. So he kind of comes in one day and he does his little slide in like that, and he says, "I can't take it anymore, Jerry. I'm flipping, I'm flopping. My boys need a home, Jerry."
What about James Earl Jones, one of my favorites?
James Earl Jones, I do the one scene on him when Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner has to take him to Fenway Park, and that's part of his thing, whatever that he keeps hearing the voices. And they're standing outside, right outside of the snack shop right there, whatever, at Fenway. And he looks at James Earl Jones and he says, "Well, James, what do you want?" And he meant food. And James starts going, "I want people to start thinking for themselves. I'm tired of people coming to me for the answers. I don't want to give people the answers anymore." And he says, "No, I mean, what do you want?" He goes, "Oh, dog and a beer."
Who else?
Well, in Pittsburgh, I do another noise in Pittsburgh. First inning, bottom of the first, our hitters are coming up, and we got our big, the big screen out there, and the train comes on. Starts getting our hitters going, you know, choo, 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 choo. And then I'll kind of sit in the dugout, and as soon as the train whistle gets ready to go, I'll kind of lean back and go,
Well, the whistle means the game's about to begin.
That's right, exactly.
And appreciate it, Denny. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll be right back for the start of today's game right after this from, I forgot, Jeff. We'll do it upstairs. How's that? Well, we'll do it upstairs. We'll be back for the start of today's game right after this from your local Honda dealer. Years old. No decision here in the big leagues. After two starts, he was 11-2 in AA and AAA this year.
And Jimmy Leland's Pittsburgh Pirates lineup will look like this today. They'll have Brumfeld back in the order, leading it off in center field. Jay Bell, the shortstop, will bat second. Orlando Merced plays right field as he did yesterday. Clean up, big first baseman Mark Johnson. Nelson Lariano, he's on a tear at the plate at second base. Al Martin will back 6th in left field. John Wayner will start at third base. He'll be batting 7th. And Elo Encarnacion will be doing the catching. He'll be batting in the 8th spot. And Paul Wagner has really struggled this season without much offensive support. He's doing the pitching.
And the defense for the Mets behind Isringhausen. Boy, it's exciting knowing this is his first start at Shea this year. Damon Buford in left field, Brett Butler in center, Carl Everett in right, Edgardo Alfonso at third, Jose Vizcaino at short, Jeff Kent at second, Rico Brogna once again at first base, Alberto Castilla behind the plate, and Isringhausen on the mound as we take a look at the dimensions here at Shea Stadium. Gary, you mentioned several times about how the ball jumps out of this ballpark this year. And these are, when you hit a home run here, it's an honest home run.
It is, unless you pull directly down the line, the only short porch there is in this yard.
Jacob Brumfield on the first pitch, pops it up behind home plate. Castillo back, and it's several rows back. 0-1 now to Jacob Brumfield, who is batting .255 on the year. The umpires for this afternoon's game, Jerry Crawford behind the plate, Angel Hernandez at first base, Tom Hallion at second, and Larry Vanover down at third. Rubber game of this 3-game series. The Pirates have lost 7 of 8. The Mets 6 of 7. 1-1 to Brumfield. Low, ball 2, 2-1. Gorgeous afternoon here at Shea Stadium.
Beautiful.
Humidity has subsided somewhat, and Brumfield going after what would have been ball 3, but it's 2-2. Jason does have control problems. If there is any dent in his armor, could be said that getting the ball over the plate is one of them. He walked 5 in his last outing and 6 1/3 at Colorado. Ball 3, full count to Brumfield. On deck batter Jay Bell of the Pirates. Tapper towards short. Vizcaino will have to hurry. Got it.
Isringhausen only walked 5 for a high in his starts at AAA, so he's really had a bit more of the problem here at the major league level with control, if walks is the indicator, than he did at the minor league level. He generally held it down to about an average of about 2.3 at minor league level for walks, but he's above that here in his first 2 starts.
Jay Bell batting .234, formerly an all-star shortstop for Pittsburgh 2 years ago. 1-0 to Jay Bell. Outside, 2-0. That's an interesting point, Gary, because a lot of young players who come to the big leagues, and it's a human trait that you think you have to do something different up here because the players are that much better. It's 3-0 to Jay Bell.
Yeah, I mean, understandably so.
Yeah.
I mean, you're coming to the major league level and you think it's going to be different, and so you try and fine-tune it a little more, when in fact, as you are told by your pitching coaches and manager, all you've got to do is keep doing what got you here. That's what you want to do, but sometimes that's easier said than done.
Popped up right side, foul territory. Brogna makes the catch. 2 outs here in the first, and Orlando Merced coming up. Bob Uecker, as we look at this catch, Bob Uecker had a remedy for nervousness in the first year or 2 in the big leagues. See Brogna making the play. There's Denny Nagel. Boy, would he get along well with Bob Uecker. Bob said he wasn't nervous the first time he put on a major league uniform. And the manager said, "You're sure you're not nervous?" Bob said, "No." Manager said, "Well, then why is your supporter on the outside?" A ball to Merced, 1-0 to the Pirate right fielder. Line drive to left field and playable. Buford back. He's there, makes the catch. Mets coming up after this from your Tri-State Ford dealer. Year, he is 1-10. He's lost his last 5 starts. His only win coming on the 26th of May against Colorado.
Jeez.
Tough year.
Mets lineup brought to you by your Tri-State Quality Ford dealer. Mets will have Brett Butler leading it off, center field, still red hot. Edgardo Alfonso at third base, bats second. Everett will make the start in right field. Carl will be batting third. Jeff Kent, the cleanup spot again. Rico Brogni at first base will bat fifth today. Buford in the lineup in left field. Damon batting sixth. Jose Vizcaino at shortstop bats seventh. Doing the catching, Alberto Castilla will be batting eighth, and Isringhausen doing the pitching.
Brett Butler leads it off. And to err is human. And guys, sometimes you hate you're so human, huh? I said this was the rubber game of this 3-game series. It's an overlapping 4-game series, as Pittsburgh will be back here tomorrow night. So while this is game 3, the Buccos behind Steve Paris will be going against Bill Pulsipher in the Mets tomorrow evening.
But the rest of us are divine, so.
Yeah, yes. Forgiving that you are.
Yes.
2 balls, no strikes to Brett Butler. No score here in the first inning as the Pirates win in order in their half of the first. Strike on the corner, 2-1 now to Butler.
Got a great hand introduced. A special presentation made to Brett before the game today by the Mets for that incredible streak that he put together with those 4-hit games.
Fly ball, center field. Brumfield there. 1 out.
Presented him with an engraved watch prior to the game. The batting instructor Tom McCraw doing that for them, and well deserved.
The defense for the Pirates: Al Martin in left, Jacob Brumfield in center, Orlando Merced the right fielder, John Wayner at third base, Jay Bell at short, Nelson Lariano the second baseman, Mark Johnson over at first, Angelo Encarnacion is behind the plate. And Edgardo Alfonso is the batter. And he takes a strike, 0-1. Encarnacion. I guess that's the angel's incarnation. It would be translated as such. And
beautiful name.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Pirate catcher from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. It's 0-2 to Alfonso. Went too far on the slider. So Alfonso out of there. Edgardo thought he would stay in the box, hoping that the umpire would change his mind. 2 outs.
Not yet. The numbers 1 and 10 for Wagner are really a little bit misleading. He has not pitched all that badly in many of his starts, even though he is up there as tied for the lead in losses this season. The Pirates have done virtually nothing for him offensively in the games that he has started for them. Little help in the run production department, and that record would not be 1 and 10.
Last Wednesday, a perfect example against the Phillies. He went 7 innings and got a no decision in a game lost in 10 innings by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Lost that game 2-1, and it's 0-2 to Carl Everett. Talked about that open stance of Everett, left-handed. We've said it last night. He has a difficult time getting to the ball outside. And an outside fastball, and Everett down on strikes. No score after 1. We're back after this from your local Dodge dealer. And left-handed, his inability to reach that ball outside. Let's take a look at him last night, his first at bat, batting right-handed against the left-hander, Denny Nagel. This is his first time up last night. And you see how closed he is, his stance. He can hit that outside pitch. Denny Nagel with a delayed motion here. The changeup, he hits it up the middle. This was the 0-2 pitch from the right-hander, Paul Wagner. You see, he cannot reach that pitch with that open stance that he has as Mark Johnson takes a ball from Jason Isringhausen. I'm sure Tom McCraw and Carl are aware of that. Sometimes a hitter just gets so far open, he doesn't know where he is. A guy like Mark Johnson, for instance.
Yep. And that's why you have the videotapes. I mean, that's why the guys go back and will look at their at-bats, as we just did there. and make some adjustment, either move the whole body closer or close that stance down a little bit, one or the other, so you're going to be able to get coverage. And it becomes more important now at this point of the season to me, because I don't think there's any question the changes in the rules have created a wider strike zone.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we're just seeing it game after game. So you've got to be ready to cover more of an area a little outside of the plate, outside of the strike zone.
Especially with 2 strikes, the ability of a hitter to go from an offensive situation when the count is 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, and 3-1 to a defensive posture as a hitter. 0-1, 1-2, 0-2 is so vital. You just can't stress it enough. The breaking ball from Isringhausen's inside and low, 3-2 to Mark Johnson.
Well, it'll be fun to watch. I mean, we'll see. Mac won't miss that, and he'll have Everett working on that. Watch him adjust here as the games go along and he gets a chance to play.
Strike 3 called on the outside corner. 4 in a row retired by Isringhausen.
Talked to Izzy today about this, about what he was charting last night and what he learned. What he learned was the strike zone's a little bigger than he thought. So he says, hey, just keep nibbling. I'm just going to keep going. He gets, if I get the outside corner, I'll take it another ½ inch and then another ½ inch. We'll see how far we can go with this till we reach the outer limits of the strike zone. And that's what he's doing.
Nelson Liriano, the second baseman's the batter. Liriano with a big double in last night's game to prolong it. Rico Brogna in foul territory makes the catch. 5 in a row now, retired by Isringhausen. Jim Palmer had the best explanation of pitching in a very simple sentence. He said that pitching is staying ahead and expanding the strike zone. It sounds so simple, but if a young pitcher can grasp that concept, if he has the ability to throw all of the things that Isringhausen has, and Bill Pulsifer and some of the other young pitchers the Mets have, that could really help their confidence. Very simple concept. It's 2-0 now to Al Martin.
And you build a reputation, Timmy, with the umpires. I mean, if the umpires know you throw strikes, there will be more called strikes and the zone will be a little bigger for you. So if you get ahead on hitters and they get used to seeing that and they say, hey, this guy throws strikes, you get the advantage of the call that's questionable. It could go either way because they just assume you got good control. You were there.
Martin swinging 3-0, taps it towards second, and Kent throws him out. So that's 6 in a row now, retired by the young right-hander. And we'll be back with the Mets coming up after this from Nobody Beats the Wiz.
Well, the Mets have 2 of the top 5 in the National League over the last 10 days in batting average, with Butler being number 1 and Kent 5, Santiago, Biggio, and Boone in the middle.
Slider in there. 2-2 now to Jeff Kent.
But that Bobby Bonilla hole is, I mean, it's an enormous hole to fill.
Yeah, it really is.
3.5 years here. He averaged 80 RBIs. And remember, they weren't full seasons, a couple of them. 27 home runs.
Tap left side. And John Wehner throws out Jeff Kent. Baltimore scoring 3 runs against the White Sox in the first inning, with Baltimore still batting. So with Bobby Bonilla batting 4th down there for the Orioles, you would think that he had something to do with that. He went 0 for 4 in last night's game, a game lost by the Orioles. That moved him to 5.5 back in the American League East.
And New York has tied Baltimore now for second place, with David Cohn coming along and putting the crunch on last night in his first appearance as a Yankee.
1-0 to Rico Brogna. Bobby Bonilla did score one of those 3 runs, we understand. It's 1-1 to Rico. Tapped foul, a ball and 2 strikes. So much happened last night. Jim Abbott won for California, reunited with Marcel Latchman. David Cohn won 4-2 over the Twins. John Wetland with a save. Bobby Bonilla started his first game with Baltimore. And Tim Wakefield won his 11th game of the year for the Boston Red Sox and leads the American League in earned run average. A splitter lifted to center field. Back is Brumfield near the track to make the one-handed catch. 2 outs here in the second.
He's now won. Wakefield has won 7 in a row to go to that 11-1 mark. And he continues to say, I don't know where it's going, referring to every pitch that he throws.
Isn't that something?
That knuckleball, he just doesn't know. And Timmy and I were looking before the game, the Pittsburgh Pirate yearbook here, the press guide. And who's in there? Number 49, Tim Wakefield.
On page 96 is Damon Buford is the batter. And the slider is in there, and there he is.
Now this is the Pirate press guide.
The Pittsburgh Pirate press guide. He was released right after spring training. 5-15 last year. Led the league in runs scored, losses, hits, everything. And here is the guy, 11-1. What a story.
And Jimmy Leland, talking with him last night, Timmy, you and I, he was telling us how happy he is for Wakefield. He loves the guy.
Oh, he's a terrific young man.
He's a wonderful guy. He's got a 1.58 ERA to lead the American League. The only pitcher in the American League below 2 ERA. And Jimmy said I couldn't be happier for him, but when he was with the Pirates spring training, he just couldn't get the knuckleball to move. Just sat there, and he was getting hammered.
I understand he I haven't talked to him, but baseball grapevine is pretty closely knit. As Encarnacion took a foul tip, not only did the Pirate catcher, but home plate umpire Jerry Crawford. Sometimes that ball can slip up under that, even with that thing that is welded onto the bottom of the mask. It can slip up under and reach the neck. If you give a little bit with the head. Ooh.
That was right on the old Chinaroonie on that one.
While we have a minute, a reminder that you're watching New York Mets Baseball 95 on UPN 9 WWOR-TV, Secaucus, New Jersey. Tim McCarver, Gary Thorne. Happy you have joined us today. A lot of fun things have happened so far. Denny Nagel, boy, was that wonderful. I mean, how about the sounds at those guttural utterances of that man?
And the inhibition to do it.
Yeah.
Like you said, when the camera came on, the light came on, he became an actor.
Explodes in front of the camera. Right field, and Brumfield is there. Damon Buford hitting it to the right field the other way, but Brumfield was there. No score after 2. We're back after this from 7-11.
First appearance as a New York Met last night, and in the 7th inning picked up his first Met hit, a single, 1 for 3. Timmy was talking to him before the game. His dad said, take the ball the other way. Well, wouldn't you know it, his last at bat here, he took the ball the other way. And wouldn't you know it, the people at the Elias Sports Bureau, the single to right field last night, his second opposite field in 117 major league at bats. He did just what his dad said twice.
2 out of 117.
It's about what you expect your children to respond to you at.
Well, father certainly knows best in that regard. Don Buford, a terrific major league player, second baseman for the Orioles in the late 60s, early 70s.
But then the question becomes, how did Elias know that?
That's amazing.
I mean,
I don't know.
God, the programmers there are beyond belief. How can you have that there so you can ask the question and the computer will give you an answer like that? I'm flabbergasted.
John Wehner, the third baseman, takes ball 3. 3-0 now to Wehner. That is the third 3-0 count run by Pirate hitters through their first 7. The other 2 swinging, Orlando Merced and Al Martin. There's a strike. 3-1 now to Wehner.
Well, the Pirates, I guess, Jimmy Leland figuring since they're last in run production, they might get a fastball to hit.
Yep.
3-0. Go after it.
inside, so Isringhausen walks his first batter of the afternoon, and that'll bring up Angelo Encarnacion. 15 for 49 is Encarnacion. See what Jim Leland does here. He can hit and run. Doubtful that he'll be bunting. Vizcaíno to Kent. Good pivot. Nice play, Bronya, to save the error. And Wainer going in very hard to Jeff Kent. 1 out.
A real good slide by Wainer at second base on Kent making the turn. And within his bounds, he was touching the bag with his hands. Rico Bronya tried to slap that tag on, couldn't. But Kent really got taken out. And one of those dangerous slides, because it was towards the knees when Kent was making that pivot move.
Yeah, a second baseman or shortstop, they don't care if a runner takes them out hard like that below the knees. Anything above the knees is considered is not considered good. Wagner bunting, and Bronya lets it roll foul. 0-1 to the pitcher, Paul Wagner. Rich Donnelly, the third base coach. Over at first, Tommy Sant. There's Tommy. Pirates with two famous names in their lineup today, Wagner and Wainer. Paul Wainer, Lloyd Wainer, Big and Little Poison. And Honus Wagner, of course, some consider the greatest shortstop of all time. And we happen to mention those three Hall of Famers because in about 21 minutes, Mike Schmidt, Richie Ashburn, Leon Day, and Bob Wolf will be going into the Hall of Fame. This bunt a good one, so Wagner's sacrifice successful. Encarnacion going to second base with 2 outs here in the third. Scoreless ball game. I had never been to an induction ceremony, Gary, until last summer when Steve Carlton was inducted, along with Leo DeRocher. It was some sight. I've been to Cooperstown many times before, but never to an induction ceremony. And you folks listening in out there, if you want to feel goosebumps for a lot of the day and for a lot of the weekend, try that on for size sometime. The breaking ball to Brumfield is high, ball 1.
Yeah, that is the glory of this game. There are the Hall of Fame people going in, and you see the Ford Frick Award to Bob Wolf. Congratulate all of them, and Leon Day, one of my favorite baseball players.
Great name, huh?
Great name.
Fly ball, center field. Brett Butler there to make the catch. So Isringhausen pitching out of mild trouble here in the third. Still no score. We're back after this from your local Honda dealer. Cap day here at Shea. Nice lid right there.
Not one they gave away, however.
No.
No.
No. First game, birthday.
Happy birthday and congratulations.
I bet she has pierced ears, too.
Yes.
That's about the
For
age
her birthday,
when they
that's
start
it.
badgering parents for pierced ears. As I'm sure your Kelly did. My Kelly did the same thing.
Same thing. Look at that. Probably birthday gifts, just a guess. They look pretty new.
Hall of Fame weekend. Gosh, it brings up so many memories as Jose Vizcaíno leads it off. Back in 1983, the Mets played the Pittsburgh Pirates a doubleheader here at Shea. First game started at 1 o'clock. The second game ended at 9 that night. An 8-hour doubleheader, 2 12-inning games, both won by the Mets. Mookie Wilson largely involved in both wins. Both of those games won by Jesse Orozco, as a matter of fact. Jesse's still in the game, pitching for Baltimore. Coincidentally, happened to be Banner Day here at Shea.
I remember that.
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
banners.
8 miles worth.
Oh, man. 0-2 to Jose Vizcaíno. fastball outside to Posey. 1-2 now. No score here in the third. No score, no hits, no errors. Two and two to Vizcaino. Just outside, but it was a foul tip. Vizcaino doesn't believe it, but Jerry Crawford calls him out. Third strikeout for Wagner. 7 in a row retired by Paul.
Encarnacion made a nice play on this. He never hesitated, maybe because it really was foul tip, but he came up throwing to third base. Said, look, I got it. It was tipped. I caught it. Boy, if it was right off the raised letters at the end of the bat.
That's interesting because the catcher, more than the umpire, is probably your best gauge as to whether it was a foul tip or not. As Alberto Castillo, the catcher, swings and misses, 0-1 to Alberto. Nothing in 2. A lot of times that ball will change directions, and a catcher who is used to catching it in the pocket will catch it just off the pocket. Plus, he's closer to it. He can hear it. Indecipherable as it may be at times.
Especially for the umpire. So as you say, that's the first clue. And the catcher hesitates, and the umpire will hesitate.
Wagner right there with that pitch. 4 strikeouts now for the Pirate right-hander, and here's Jason Isringhausen coming up.
He had 51 strikeouts in 82 innings coming into this game. He's already picked up 4 here, and he's cutting it. You see that little bit maybe outside? Well, that's the way it is right now. This umpiring crew in particular, they've been consistent about that.
Isringhausen fouls it off down the right field line, giving Chase his merced to no avail. 0-1 to Isringhausen. Boy, that's a nice lift.
She came back from the tunnel. That is quite the chapeau right there.
Very colorful.
Very.
Isringhausen in the hole. 0-2 to Jason Isringhausen. Chopped foul.
Gets his hacks in. He's had very little opportunity to hit under game conditions, either in the minors or here. But he, true to form as a pitcher, loves to swing that bat. He's a real gamer in the pitcher's games, early batting practice. Tries to crank the long ones out.
Wagner with another strikeout. We have played 3 innings. There's been 1 base runner, and that on a walk. Neither pitcher is allowed a hit. We're back after this from Coca-Cola Classic. Zeros across the board. Only 1 base runner. That was John Wayner in the 3rd inning. He was replaced by Encarnacion, who was sacrificed to second. Jacob Brumfield made the last out in the 3rd. And here in the 4th, in for the play-by-play, Gary Thorne.
And it'll be Jay Bell, Orlando Merced, and Mark Johnson up for the Buccos here in the 4th inning against 22-year-old Jason Isringhausen. Bell still trying to get out of an 0 for his last 10 as he popped out in his first at-bat. Average continues to slide down. 233 his average as he stands in. 29-year-old veteran shortstop for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Finished up last season with a 276 average. Well below that this year. And again gets fisted. First base, Rico Bonier's had a busy day looking at Mother Nature's son. Puts that one away. And Bell's retired. Twice has popped out to Bronya. One away here in the 4th. Seemed to indicate that fastball of Isringhausen, Timmy's going to be moving a little bit with these pop-ups, huh?
Jim Leland asked me about Isringhausen before the game. He said, does he throw hard? Since Jim had never seen him, I said, well, I don't think that it's how hard he throws as much as how the hitters react to his fastball. They react like the ball's on top of them momentarily, just before they're ready to swing.
That one drill right center field will be the first hit of the game. Orlando Merced on his way to second base. Everett out to get it, and he'll stop with a double. That one set there, and Merced delivers a one-out double here in the fourth. He's 5 for 10 in the series, Timmy. He's hot.
That's another way of saying that a pitcher is sneaky fast, but Merced solves the Isringhausen problem momentarily as he doubles to right field. He's a good hitter.
16 doubles on the season now for Merced, one away. And Mark Johnson called out on strikes his first time up, the only strikeout victim thus far for Isringhausen. Play the big guy to pull, and he does. Base hit into right field, making the turn. Merced, Everett up with it. Maybe a play at the plate. Throw through. Not even close. 1-0 Pittsburgh. Merced scores as Mark Johnson picks up his 27th RBI. 1-0 Pirates.
Carl Everett with a strong arm, but he appeared to be very cautious charging this ball. This is one of those skitters to the outfield. Look how cautious Everett is, feeling the ball with his left hand. That is the proper movement for an outfielder. Watch him scoop the glove to the right hand, but he's very cautious in there. Proper technique. The ball skidding under the glove of Bronya, and the Pirates first on the board.
There goes Johnson, hit and run. Johnson, a huge jump, and the big guy's got a stolen base. He has 5 stolen bases in 7 attempts. You would not, just looking at the physique of this guy, figure him to be a base stealer. But man, he was long gone on that one.
6-7, moving like John Havlicek down to second base.
That one up the middle. Vizcaíno can't get it. Johnson coming around. Butler makes the throw to the plate. Castillo there has got the ball, and he's out. Brett Butler on the fly to Alberto Castillo. They cut down Mark Johnson.
All Johnson has to do is slide to the outside part of the plate. He played football at Dartmouth, and possibly the football mentality came out. Number one, why is Castillo 2 feet in front of the plate? That's where he was. And Johnson, all he has to do is slide to the outside, and he's safe easily. But he tries to run into Castillo. Look how much room he has to slide outside, and Castillo in front of the plate. You got to block the plate in a situation like that, and then it's understandable for Johnson to take out a catcher, but why take him out when he's giving you the whole plate for which to slide?
Timmy, he had to go out of the baseline to get to Castillo.
That's right. That's exactly right.
If he'd stayed in the baseline, the only thing he's going to touch is home plate.
That's it. You got it, brother. You got it.
It's right there. Well, Lariano gets a single and goes to second on the play at the plate. 2 down, Al Martin up. So Johnson cut down at home on the throw by Butler.
Johnson's safe easily if he slides to the outside, even a straight in slide. Look at Castillo, freeze it right there. See how much room he's got to the outside? He actually had to go out of his way to nail Castillo. If he slides straight in, the Pirates are up 2-0. But I think some of the football mentality may have come out in Mark Johnson then. He wanted some contact.
He looks like a pulling guard right here, cruising in the end. Castillo couldn't believe he got hit.
And he couldn't believe he got the out call.
He knew how far away from home plate he was when he put the tag on, or actually the tag was put on because Johnson ran into it. Al Martin with a 2-1 count, 2 down. Isringhausen hit up here for a double and 2 singles, but only 1 run in and 2 away. Martin takes the fastball inside. Martin grounded out his first time up. So potentially big defensive play here in this 4th inning. because the Pirate batters really teed off. And now with the count 3-1 and first base open, they will walk Martin. So Martin, the left-handed hitter, will get down to first with an intentional pass. Be the second walk. Giving up by Isringhausen.
Third baseman John Wayner.
All of a sudden, after going through the first 3 innings, where they were not getting much on Isringhausen's deliveries at all, they have tagged the ball here in this 4th inning. John Wayner coming up, drew a walk his first time up. This is a hot hitter right here. 8 for his last 21.
Take one more look at that play at the plate. It was most unusual. Look where Castillo is. He's 4 feet from the plate. Johnson, with that long rangy body, if he slides right in, he's safe easily. But actually, as Gary said, came out of the line and out of his way to take a shot at Castillo.
And cost the Pirates a run.
Yeah,
in doing so. 1 ball, 1 strike on John Wayner. .394 batting average, playing in just his 14th game of the season. 1 RBI for him in the limited chances. And he's got 2 on here. A good off-speed breaking ball. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Wayner was playing most of this season at AAA Calgary, called up last Monday. One of a number of the Calgary players on hand right now with the Pirates because of injuries. 1-2, slider misses down low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 1-0 lead. Pittsburgh up, getting it on 3 hits thus far here in the 4th inning. Isringhausen's got Lariano on at second base. Martin on at first. Lariano single, kind of got lost in the traffic at the plate. Wayner taps that one foul outside of third. It'll hold 2 balls, 2 strikes. These 2 teams will play again tomorrow night. An unusual wrap-up to the series to have a Monday night game. Steve Paris and Bill Pulsiver will be making the start in the 7:40 first pitch here at Shea Stadium tomorrow night. There's Pulsiver charting his soulmate's game as he prepares for tomorrow. 2-2 to Wayner, and he fouls it back. Saw 1 fly ball carry out there towards center in this game. There is a light breeze that's circling around. Pete Harnish on the left, Bobby Wine on the right.
We're talking about the open stance of John Wayner.
Great breaking ball. Isringhausen gets his second strikeout, leaving 2 Pirates on. But the Bucks take a 1-0 lead here in the 4th inning. Now this from Nobody Beats the Wiz. Brought to you by Nobody Beats the Wiz Home Entertainment Centers, and by your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lexus dealer, who invites you to test drive a Lexus today. Gary Thorne and Tim McCarver. Upper 80s temperature. Humidity's down considerably from what it's been the last couple of days around the greater New York area. Bright blue skies here at Queens for this Sunday game. Now the Mets trailing 1-0 in the bottom of the 4th inning. We'll have the top of the order. Butler, Alfonso, and Everett will be due up. Brett Butler stands in now, having gone over the 300 mark. Batting average of .301, flied out to center his first time up. On July 16th, he was batting .256. Is the end of July. He is batting .301. Chops it down to first base, Mark Johnson. And Butler's retired on the first pitch from Paul Wagner. 1 away.
That's a huge hill to climb after that many at-bats, and he did it so rapidly.
Well, in the last dozen games coming into this game, he's batting .538, 28 for 52. An incredible run. Mets third baseman Edgardo Alfonso went down swinging rather his first at bat. 5 strikeouts for Paul Wagner in this game. His season high is 7. He got that in his first start against Montreal. Wayner is Wagner hit the ground. Pitcher went down on all fours that time, actually prone, so that he wouldn't be in the way of the throw. Alfonso retired 2 away.
Like a new recruit on the infiltration course.
Hit it.
Watch Wagner. Flat on the ground. You can see it right to the left of your screen. Get down, Charlie.
Tracer's coming. Wagner really on here in first part of this game. No walks, 5 strikeouts, throwing strikes, getting ahead of the hitters.
Well, when can we say it?
Now.
Okay. Perfect game for Paul Wagner.
That's it.
You know they're listening in Pittsburgh, so they got to blame somebody if he doesn't pitch one.
Might well be us. Short hop. Nice play by Jay Bell. And another very strong inning for Wagner, who still has, you know,
one of those.
Pittsburgh leading it by 1. Now this from Roy Rogers. And has a 1-0 lead as the Bucks coming up, and he will too. Encarnacion, his catcher, however, will lead it off. Then Wagner in the top of the order, Brumfield. Encarnacion, just 22 years old, out of Santo Domingo, 5+ years in the minors. His first shot at a major league ball game came this season. Encarnacion spent most of the year Calgary, called up last Friday. Fouls that one straight back. And hello, Encarnacion. Angelo, if it's Americanized. There's that breaking ball again on the outside corner. 2 strikes. Isringhausen's got that curveball dropping off the corner today.
Knuckle curve.
Here's the 0-2. Encarnacion playing in his 20th game. A couple of doubles for extra base hits. And just missed on the inside corner with 2 balls and 2 strikes. Isringhausen making his 3rd start, debuted in Chicago on the 17th. Mets won the game 7-2. He was non-decision. Then came back in his 2nd start at Colorado. Rockies won that ball game 5-4, but again Isringhausen was indecision in that game. There are the numbers today. 2-2. Oh, yeah. Mercy.
Shook off the fastball. Castillo, by the way, caught Isringhausen for most of his games down in Norfolk. And possibly the reason Dallas Green's starting Castillo today. Shaking off the fastball, and Encarnacion locked with the knuckle curve.
The opposing pitcher, Paul Wagner, up, sacrificed his first time up. 3 strikeouts now for Isringhausen, 2 in a row. 1-0 to Wagner, and he goes to right field with this. Carl Everett backing up. 2 down. This game looks very much like last night's ball game.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Denny Nagel, who pitched so well, a non-decision, and Brett Saberhagen, coming back after missing 2 starts, was magnificent, giving up no runs on 3 hits over 8 innings. Now these two, Wagner and Isringhausen, are locked in a good one to start this game. Jacob Brumfield appeared as a pinch hitter in last night's game. 0 for 2. A modest 3-game hit streak for Brumfield. Off-speed breaking ball that didn't. Ball 1. Pirates have lost 7 of their last 8 games as they come in 36-47. Jimmy Leyland saying it's tough right now for this team. So many of their starters out, as we've mentioned. He's got a lot of the Calgary players here. A lot of them he does not know much about. And so he was telling Timmy and I'm just going to give him a chance. I'll put him in and learn as we go along here. See what they can do.
Jimmy is not really sure whether the Pittsburgh franchise is going to be in that city much longer. Quite candid about it. Does not know whether they can make it financially.
2-1 delivery. Well, they're still trying to find a buyer or arrange some kind of a sale of the team, which has gone down 3 or 4 times to incomplete negotiations over the last year and a half. City money is invested in it right now, taxpayer dollars. 3 balls and 2 strikes on Jacob Brumfield. But the underline, Timmy, they're just not drawing.
No local television package to speak of.
Ooh. 3-2 and he's gone. He went. Brumfield tried to fake. Didn't work on Jerry Crawford. Bucks still lead 1-0, but a good 1-2-3 inning. Now this word from Lexus. Stopped here first. This copyrighted telecast is authorized under television rights granted by Sterling Doubleday Enterprises LP solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, or use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of Sterling Doubleday Enterprises LP is prohibited. Any commercial or the use of the program, such as by charging commission for its showing, is likewise prohibited. Speaking of Wonderland, Tim McCarver.
Jeff Kent leads it off. It's been a wonderland for Paul Wagner today. He has retired 13 in a row now with the Kent ground out. He has a perfect game going, and Rico Brogna coming up.
Well, the Pirates have only averaged 1.6 runs for him when he's been on the mound in his starts. So he knows he's probably got as much as he's going to get.
You know, of course, he has a 5.23 earned run average coming in, too. I've always thought that as Brogna takes outside for a strike, that if a guy can, if he has a low earned run average and a bad record, then you can justify his team not scoring a lot of runs for him. But if his earned run average is high, then that means he's given up more than 5 runs every 9 innings. So he's, you know, had his share of damage control, out of control himself. Breaking ball outside to Brogna, 2 balls and a strike to Rico.
The left-handers who've primarily done it to him, they've hit .301 against Wagner this year. Right-handers .249. The lefties tended, the lineups have been loaded with left-handers against him, and that has really jumped that ERA.
First 3-ball count by Wagner since Brett Butler opened the game. Brett flying to center field, so it's 3-1 to Brogna here in the 5th. High and away. Sure enough, the minute you mentioned perfect game, he ends up walking a guy.
Wait a minute.
You know, we were talking about it between innings, and both Gary and I were going out on a limb saying that we would imagine, you know, sure, this is a chance, but
it is.
We would guess that no catcher whose name is Encarnacion has ever caught a perfect game.
Now, say we're wild and crazy, but
hey,
you know,
sure, we tell you, you got to take a chance.
You got to go out there sometimes. And he's not going to catch one today.
Inside to Buford, 1 ball, no strikes. There's Angelo.
Just kidding.
Wagner still with a no-hitter, however, through 4 1/3.
There.
Fouls this out of play, 1-1. You know, I can understand maybe the players being superstitious. What I've never understood is how broadcasters don't announce no-hitters. I think it's one of the most foolish things in the broadcasting business. I mean, you hear guys dance around it. Now they've been doing it forever. Tell me about that.
That's the answer, because they've been doing it forever.
Yeah, I guess
Why do you do that? Because we've been doing it forever.
We've been doing it forever. Everybody else does it.
Yeah.
1-1 to Buford. Here in the 5th, 1-0 Buccos. Good breaking ball, chopped foul. Ball and 2 strikes now to Damon Buford. If Papa's watching now, he'd be saying, hit the ball to right field, Damon. Don't try to pull it. Breaking ball and firewood for Damon Buford. He breaks his bat.
He has an unusual swing. He has
It's stiff, isn't it?
It is very stiff. Even when he's just standing there preparing for the pitch, he shows you how stiff that swing is, because he hardly moves his arms, and then it becomes kind of a looping swing.
He's a palm hitter.
Yeah.
Instead of holding the bat in the crease of the where the fingers meet the palm, he holds the ball and the palm gets involved more than it should. Flexibility in a swing comes from the fingers, not the palm.
Look at that.
Fouls it back. Actually, Damon chokes the bat in more ways than one. He not only chokes up, but by the very way he holds the bat, he chokes it.
Then stiff arms it.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Damon Buford. The Mets trailing 1-0 here in the 5th inning. Down on strikes. The high fastball gets him. That's strikeout number 6 for Wagner. And Jose Vizcaino coming up.
Career high is 9 for Wagner in the strikeout department against Chicago back in '94. 7 is high this year. This has to be one of the better performances, period, for Paul Wagner.
Oh, you implied it before. I mean, even though he's 1-10, Jim Leyland continues to send him out there. So Jim Leyland, the pitching coach Ray Miller, they're seeing something perhaps Wagner doesn't feel he has as Vizcaino fouls it back.
He's coming right at hitters. He's only gone 3-0 once. He's generally getting first strikes. Ray Miller is seated closest to you there, pitching coach.
Leyland giving signs to Encarnacion, the catcher. Line base hit up the middle. So Vizcaino with the first hit. Bronya goes to third. The Mets with runners at the corners and 2 outs here in the 5th.
Jose Vizcaino continues to have a very impressive offensive year for the Mets. Vizcaino really tagging this one. He's batting .278 left-handed coming into this game. Overall average of .275. A very solid season. I mean, in every way for Vizcaino. And again, kind of quiet. You mentioned before, he plays this season in the shadow of a player who's never been here, Ray Ordonez, who's got the job at shortstop. And he's kind of like just hanging on to it till the arrival.
Like a new father, huh?
Yeah. But the way he's played, there'll be plenty of adoption agencies ready to call.
Our American League Toyota scoreboard. Orioles 6-1. Bobby Bonilla scoring his first American League run in that game. The Angels once again winning over the Brewers. Indians play later. 2 balls and no strikes to Alberto Castillo with 2 outs, runners at the corners, and the Mets trailing 1-0 here in the 5th inning. Two and 1 to Castillo, who is 1 for 18 in his time with the Mets this year. Bad ball. 2-2 now to Castillo.
Wagner can throw a 90 to 92 mile an hour fastball and has a hard 88+ mile an hour slider. So problems. He's never had an off-speed pitch to go with it. The changeup is the pitch he's worked on over the past few seasons, but he's throwing good heat today.
Two and 2 to Castillo. Down on strikes. Alberto Castillo has struck out 2 times. 7 strikeouts now for Wagner, and we're back after this from Federal Express. world through rose-colored glasses. Guess that's what Paul Wagner is doing right now. He has a one-hitter against the Mets. Pirates leading 1-0. And our new Dodge quiz this afternoon, the 1930 New York Yankees had more players who were eventual Hall of Famers than any other team. How many did they have? 5, 7, or 9? As Jay Bell takes a ball from Jason Isringhausen. I looked at that question before the game. It's taken me 5 innings to even remember a little bit. Picked by Bronya again. 1 out. And Rico Bronya, I am telling you, talk about picking. He can pick it.
No matter how it gets there, it always ends up in his glove.
Well said.
Watch this on Vizcaíno. And he's putting a little bit of the show into it lately. Little turn right there. A little of that Aussie 360 short.
It kind of softens the hand too when you do that.
Sure. And to bring it into the body. What a show.
He can make some dazzling picks over at first base as Orlando Merced, who doubled and scored the only run of the game his last time up, takes strike 1. How many errors has Rico Bronya saved the infielders this year, especially the left side of the infield?
He and Mark Grace have put up the big numbers at first base fielding wise. He's been off the mark a good deal more than he'd like to when the strikes and balls are about the same in number.
Low to Merced, 2 balls and a strike. 1930 New York Yankees had at least 5 Hall of Famers on their roster. You know, Gehrig and Ruth, that's 2. Fastball inside and low, 3-1 now to Merced. I think Bill Dickey started that year. Tony Lazzari. Red Ruffing, perhaps.
Pitcher, yeah.
Line to right field by Merced. Everett will have to hurry, and he does, to hold Orlando to a single. I'm going to say 5.
I'll say 7 just because I think there may be another couple of pitchers, but
Lefty Gomez with them that year. Was he with the A's? Now the name should be interesting. 9.
Ole magro.
Wow. 9 Hall of Famers. We'll try to have the names for you shortly, as Mark Johnson, who singled in the only run of the game his last time up. Ground ball single to right field. He's 1 for 2. Blocked by Castillo, but Merced now rounding second base. A big turn. Castillo couldn't find the ball initially. Will probably be scored a wild pitch by Isringhausen, his 2nd of the year.
Dumps this one, and Castillo side of half backhanded, half got the body over, and ended up not doing much of either.
Yeah, when a catcher, right up the arm. Yeah, when a catcher goes after a ball like that, it's nothing but trouble. And a wild pitch by Isringhausen. 1 ball, no strikes to Mark Johnson. Gas there, 1-1 to Johnson. Breaking ball, fouled away. Ball and 2 strikes to the Pittsburgh first baseman Mark Johnson. Jason Isringhausen has allowed 4 hits, half of those to the guy on second base, Orlando Merced. Johnson jammed, looking at his business partner there around home plate, saying, hairline fracture here? What's going on? Have an MRI taken probably after the game.
Probably.
See whether it's going to be on the DL or not. You know what DL is for bats, don't you? Damaged lumber.
Damaged lumber. Remember, he throws the knuckle curve with his fingernail, and he may be having a problem with that here. He's been looking down.
Looks like his ring finger, though, Gary.
Yeah, it does. He's been looking down at his finger, or hand at least, and now obviously it's one of the fingers bothering him.
At least he's not looking down at his finger like Jack McDowell did about 2 weeks ago at Yankee Stadium.
Along with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Alice Green getting the explanation from Greg Pavlik on what the problem was there.
1 ball, 2 strikes now to Mark Johnson. 1 out here in the 6th. 1-0 Pittsburgh. Breaking ball is low. 2-2. Check swing. Vizcaíno will have to hurry, and he gets his man. And Johnson stepped on Brogna. Mark Johnson has done damage to the Mets team. He plowed into Castillo when Castillo was 4 feet off the plate trying to score, and now he steps on Brogna.
He's still looking for that first down. He took a real good sprawl here after he steps on. Right there, he kicked him. And then face first in the dirt. That was the slight rumble you felt in your home.
Nelson Liriano now with 2 outs. Merced still at second, and the breaking ball inside, spinning Liriano around. Liriano is jammed. Ground ball to first, and Isringhausen's out of it. Brogna makes the play easily. Still 1-0 Pirates. Middle of the 6th. We're back after this from Lexus. 1-0 Pittsburgh. And Jason Isringhausen will lead it off here in the 6th inning. His reward for pitching so well. But he has been bested by Paul Wagner of the Pirates. Brett Butler on deck. Jason still looking for his first hit. He is 0 for 6, and he takes a strike from Wagner. Nothing in 2 now to Jason Isringhausen. And Isringhausen down on strikes. That is 8 strikeouts now for Paul Wagner, 1 shy of his career high.
But just dominating, huh?
Yeah. Mets with their secret weapon on the bench, however. Chris Jones is slowly but surely becoming the Casey Jones of the National League. How about that? His 3rd pinch homer last night, 2nd game winner. And Butler takes a fastball high. Talking to Jim Leland before the game, he said, I got to hand it to Dallas. He said, I didn't think you'd pinch hit for Brogna last night. He said, that's why I brought the left-hander in. Ross Powell losing his first National League game, his first appearance. Butler wanted to bunt. He holds up 2-0 now to Brett Butler. There's Chris. What a job he has done. 7 home runs, 3 in the pinch hitting role. Ties him with Tony Longmire, John Vanderwall of the Rockies. Longmire with the Phillies. They both have 3 pinch hit home runs as Butler takes ball 3, 3-0.
And limited at-bats, as we mentioned. I mean, he's only had 123 at-bats and has produced the 7 homers and 20 RBIs.
3 balls and 1 strike to Brett Butler. Ricardo Alfonso on deck. Ball 4. So Butler walks. Second walk given up by Wagner. And Edgardo Alfonso the batter. That's one of the great things about Leland, Gary. You know, if given credit to Dallas, he said, you know, he hornswoggled me last night. Putting up Chris Jones to pinch hit for Rico Brunya. He said, I did not think he'd do it. But how many managers would admit that? And the guy's so candid. He's so honest.
He loves the game. I mean, both he and Dallas have that in common. They really love the game and love managing and being around it, and can smile at one another when those things happen. I mean, they enjoy trying to best the other, but nothing personal, and it's a game, and they get a smile out of it.
Moving their chess men around. There goes Butler. Ground ball right side. Beautifully executed by Alfonso as Butler walks to third. And now the Mets with runners at the corners and only one out.
Just something else he can do. Edgardo Alfonso, that's why he's in the #2 hole, and this is why he's going to stay there. Sees the second baseman Lariano move over to cover, puts it right where Lariano had been. He just drew the back foot up a little bit to take the ball to right field. Butler, as Timmy said, just wanders on over to third base. Outstanding hit and run execution.
Here's Carl Everett. 2 for 4 in last night's game. He's 0 for 2 this afternoon. Looking to pick up at least one, and he fouls it back. 0-1 to Everett.
That's the third foul ball that he's put in the same place down there, right in about 2 or 3 rows back. Screaming line drives just outside the screen.
Not catching up to the fastball of Wagner's so far. 0-1 to Carl. Outside, ball 1, 1-1. Change outside. 2 balls and a strike. I really question that pitch right there. Everett's not getting around on the fastball. You do him a favor throwing him a slop drop.
And you make a mistake on that and get it in a hittable area.
An easy pitch to lift also. Ground ball towards second. Could be 2. Lariano to Bell. Saved at first base. And here comes Leland. Mark Johnson wanted the call. The Pirates thought they had it. And Jim Leland out of the dugout. Angel Hernandez calling him safe. It's a tie ball game. And here comes Leland.
And there was a little hesitation on this call, which is why I think Jimmy Leland's coming out. Hernandez, you could see the hesitation in making the call. Jimmy's just going to ask about it. Good play here. Lariano to Bell, who's got to come across in a hurry. He did. Ooh la la.
Ooh. I think the Mets got a break there. I thought an eyelash he might have had him. Very close, however.
See if you can see the umpire Hernandez here. Now, there was the shoulder started kind of jerked up, just started to move up as though it was going to be an out call, and then the safe call came.
That was a very close play. The Mets got the call, and Everett a base stealing threat, driving in his 11th run with Jeff Kent the batter. 1-1 here in the 6th inning. And a pitch out. Jim Leland immediately back to the dugout and gave the pitch out to Encarnacion. 1 ball, no strikes to Jeff Kent. Hitless against Wagner for his career. Everett not running, and the fastball is low. 2 balls and no strikes to Jeff.
The other reason Jimmy Leland came out on that call, Wagner jumped up in the air twice after the safe call was made. So he had to come out for his pitcher's sake on that one as well. Wagner's in this ball game. He thought they had the out over there, and he was upset about it. Leland got there before Wagner did.
There goes Everett. Fastball is outside. Encarnacion with a bullet to get Everett on a tough pitch to handle. Encarnacion shows us why he's in there. I mean, what an arm. 1-1 ball game. We'll be back after this from AT&T. Innings, at least the teams do. They can go to the dugout. Boy, what a throw by Angelo Encarnacion, the Pirate catcher. Watch the pitch he has to handle. Down in the dirt, I mean a bullet to short. And with his throw, I will throw it to Gary Thorne.
Man,
play-by-play.
Oh man, look at this. Whew. That is picture perfect release. Al Martin's got himself a leadoff single as we go to the 7th inning. That'll be hit number 5 off Isringhausen in the game. Martin's first. He's 1 for 2. Bottom part of the order, John Wayner. Encarnacion, then the pitcher would be due up here in the top of the 7th. 5 hits for the Buccos and 2 for the Mets. That's getting their run on that fielder's choice. RBI single by Johnson in the 4th inning after a double by Merced, accounting for the Pittsburgh Pirates run in this game. Isringhausen has walked 2, 1 intentional, struck out 4, and is taking a long look at Martin over there at first base. Ball game tied at 1-1. Al Martin with 11 stolen bases leads this team in that department. Pretty good lead over there. Isringhausen just steps off this time with no throw. John Wayner called out on strikes his last time up. Martin back standing. Also has drawn a walk. 1 of 4 left stranded thus far in the game by the Pirates. Takes the pitch, strike on the inside corner. 0-1 on Wayner. Martin, that potential go-ahead run over there, not extending his lead very far. 0-1 count, and again jammed him. Wayner taking that one inside. 1 ball and 1 strike. Checking to see whether or not a bunt might be on here. Brony was cheating in a little bit off first base that time. They do have the bottom of the order though, with the catcher and 8-hole, and then the pitcher due up.
And no one warming for the Pirates in their bullpen, so the odds have been bunting here remote.
Wayner playing in just his 14th game for the Pirates this season. 1-1 delivery to him. Off speed breaking ball, missed up high. 2 balls and 1 strike. Oh, Isringhausen continues to have a problem getting the count in his favor. Giving up just that 1 run on 5 hits.
I think you'll see a hit and run right here. I think Martin will be off of the pitch.
2-1's the count. Not going, and he drops that knuckle curve in. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Key pitch right here. Do that when you're behind in the count. You're going to have a lot of hitters taking that pitch.
2 balls, 2 strikes. See if Martin goes on this. He does not. And Wayner into reach and foul that one off to hold the count at 2-2. You could see on that last pitch we showed you on the replay, the knuckle curve. You could actually see the raised finger on that as Isringhausen was delivering the pitch. the fingernail that he digs into the ball to throw that knuckle curve, not actually the knuckle. Got a 2-2 count here, and we'll hold Martin again. Cat and mouse game being played here. Isringhausen and Martin at first. 2-2 to Wainer, grounded to short. Vizcaíno, double play situation. Kent, the quick relay, not in time. Tough angle for Kent to make the pivot. They get Martin at second base, one down.
Tough angle for Vizcaíno too. Had too much to do. High chopper. Catches it in between hop. And on a ball like that, you really have to make sure of one, the way the ball was hit. It didn't allow Vizcaíno to make a smooth relay to Jeff Kent.
So they get the lead runner. Wainer's on at first base. Encarnacion has gone 0 for 2. Runner goes. Throw down by Castillo. Got him! And the catcher's putting on a show today.
Throw like this is enough to make a mildly ripening old catcher. I had to get old in there hurt. Oh man, what a gun. First Encarnacion and now Castillo.
25-year-old Mets backup catcher with Todd Hundley out. Guns down. Wainer at second base, and now there are 2 away. Base is empty, and a 3-0 count here on Encarnacion. Roberto Castillo, 25 years old, working behind there. There's Todd Hundley. He's got that soft cast off the arm. You see him exercising with a sponge in his hand there for muscle strength on that sprained wrist. 3-1 the count. Bobby Bonilla gone. They really need Todd Hundley's bat back in the lineup, especially the way he was booming from the left side of the plate with the long ball. Wanted to pick up some of that slack. 3-1 delivery by Isringhausen, and he walked him. Third walk given up by Isringhausen. First one picked up by Encarnacion, and it'll bring up the pitcher, Paul Wagner. You see the fewest walks by a staff in the majors surrendered by the New York Mets staff. First bullpen action we've had today in either bullpen. Paul Bird recently called up, the right-hander, and Eric Gunderson, the left-hander. Paul Wagner will try and help himself out now with a runner on at first base, 2 away in this 1-1 ball game. Isringhausen going the distance for the Mets as we're in the 7th here at Shea. 0-1 delivery. And again, the breaking ball's in there. 0-2. Wagner with a sacrifice and is flied out. Had 3 hits this season, 1 extra base hit, a double. Taps that one. Tough play for Isringhausen, and he could not come up with it cleanly. He wasn't going to take that ball with Kent coming in from second. Then at the last second looked like he decided to play it.
He lost the ball in the sun. Back in, I believe it was the 1955 series, Billy Lowe said that he lost the ball in the sun, and everybody laughed at that. It was a ground ball, but obviously, because this ball is chopped so high, a case could be made that Jason did lose the ball in the sun, couldn't find the handle. Not that there are any handles on baseballs, but it's another phrase that's always surprised me a bit, you know.
Causes one concern when considered.
Look for the handle on it.
Infield single. Brumfield up, and the slider misses, ball 1. That is the 6th hit off Isringhausen. In a dangerous spot right here. Runners on at first and second, 2 away, 1-1 game in the 7th. Again, the slider. Brumfield can't catch it. Jacob Brumfield, 333 with runners in scoring position, has been one of their leaders as a clutch hitter among their regular players. His numbers off right-handers. 0-2 the count. Fastball up high, 1 ball, 2 strikes. Isringhausen rearing back, getting a little more on that heater. Encarnacion on at second base. Wagner at first. 1-2. Brumfield. Kent. He'll take it himself for the force play at second. And the Pirates do not score despite a couple of hits in the 7th inning. It's 7th inning stretch time. Time for this word from Chrysler. 7th inning coming up. Good ball game here at Shea. 1-1. Day in, day out, at home or on the road, you can always count on the great taste of Bud Light. It won't fill you up and never lets you down. So make it a Bud Light. We had looked earlier at our new Dodge quiz and those 9 Hall of Famers off that New York Yankees team. We hadn't had a chance to show you the names of those players. We'll do that for you here.
Earl Combs, Bill Dickey. It was, I believe that was Dickey's first year. Lou Gehrig, Lefty Gomez was on that club. Wade Hoyt was an announcer for the Cincinnati Reds back in the 50s and 60s and used to room with Babe Ruth. And Lazzari, Herb Pennock with a terrific curveball. Red Ruffing was on the team. Babe Ruth, of course, and Joe Sewell. Isn't that 10?
I thought the answer was 9.
Oh, yeah. I guess Joe Sewell from 31 to 33 only. How about that, though? At 30. Kidding me? Man.
Some kind of lineup. Jeff Kent batting at .282, month of July, in 12 games, red hot. And the Mets, this 1-1 ball game. Like to see their cleanup batter get on here. Bronya and Buford to follow Kent. Mets have had only 2 hits in the game. Paul Wagner has just been dominating this game with a couple of walks and 8 strikeouts, throwing an outstanding fastball. National League scoreboard with the Cubs doing it again to the Phillies. Montreal Expos, they've given the Rockies some problems. Other games will be played with later starts. On this Sunday, with Atlanta leading Philly by 8, as Phillies have lost their last 2, Atlanta winning their last 2 to extend the lead. Cincinnati's got a 4.5 over Houston, and Colorado by 4 over Los Angeles. The division leaders right now in the National League.
How about the Houston Astros? 13 games over.
They are playing 25-15 on the road. They've got one of the better road records for wins in baseball. They're only 3 over 500 at home. They, of course, are in line for a wild card spot. They would be the wild card team if the playoffs started today. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Jeff Kent. 27-year-old right-hander. Did he get him? They want it checked at first. No. Angel Hernandez says 3-2.
Didn't appear that Kent went around. Close.
Very close. There aren't many of those that aren't. 3-2. Drills that one over the head of Wagner at third, and Jeff Kent is on with a leadoff single as he ripped that one by Wagner. Well, the Mets have their 3rd hit of the game. The first time they've had the leadoff man on base.
Looked for a fastball and got it with a count full. So Kent, the leadoff runner, here in the 7th inning. First time in this game the Mets have had their leadoff batter on.
Rico Bronya has walked and flied out in the game. Rico 4 for 9 in this series against the Pirates. That'll continue tomorrow night at Shea. The 7:40 first pitch. Bill Pulsiver is pitching tomorrow night. Chance to see Pulsiver go against Steve Paris, who's 4-2 for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Paul Wagner working here with the leadoff man on. Rico Bronya waiting. And the breaking ball misses down low, 1-1. Dallas Green, we were talking about Rico being pulled for Chris Jones, the pinch hitter, and Jones delivering the home run last night. Against left-handers right now, Dallas is just going by gut feel. Some left-handers he thinks Rico can hit, others he's concerned about. So he's making that decision in an at-bat by at-bat situation. Rico's starting games against left-handers, usually. Dallas says, hey, that part of managing I still do from right down here. 1-1 towards second base, out of the reach of Lariano. Up with it, Merced on the way to third. Throw coming. Kent is in. Cut off. Back to first. Bronya back.
Good aggressive base running by Jeff Kent. That ball hit right to the left of Lariano, but that ball had a little giddy up on it. I think Lariano thought he was going to make that play. As a matter of fact, I did too. But this ball hit harder than it initially appeared and scoots by Lariano. Merced charging hard, and Kent, very aggressive, makes it to third.
Jeff Kent never stopped. Throw was cut off, did not come through, and the Mets have runners on at first and third, nobody out, and Joe Orsulak will come on to pinch hit here for Damon Buford. Buford had taken an 0 for 2. Bullpen action for the first time for the Pirates. Plesac and Dwyer both have been warming up and are about ready if needed. Orsulak takes the pitch outside, ball 1.
Infield in right here, Gary, and this is a very difficult play on the runner at third base. What you have to do is make the infielders think you're going to score and then go back to third. You don't want it first and second and 1 out. And if he tries to score, that's exactly what it will be. So what you have to do is make the infielders think you're going, cause them to hesitate a bit, look at you, and then go back to third. That way you prevent the double play.
Joe Orsulak with the infield in. And Orsulak to center field. Jeff Kent tagging up. Rumfield fighting the sun, puts it away. Here comes Kent to the plate. Johnson lets it go through, not in time, and the Mets lead it 2-1. '23 runs batted in for Joe Orsulak.
Seems like all of them have been big runs too. Go ahead RBIs or game tying RBIs. Brumfield fighting the sun a bit. By the time Jacob comes into throwing position, Jeff Kent scores easily, and the Mets take the lead for the first time in this game.
Well, the Mets have had to battle in this, getting these 2 runs and just 4 hits. And Jimmy Leland himself will go out to have a word with Paul Wagner. Mets have Jose Vizcaino, switch hitter, due up next.
Get the feeling that with Jim Leland, there are no wasted trips to the mound. A lot of managers will go out to the mound just because people in the press think it's time to go, or just because whatever ridiculous baseball tradition may call for it. But it seems like when Leland goes out there, not to take out a pitcher, he really has something concise to say.
Vizcaino pulls that one down the line. Orlando Merced will watch it go foul. Off-speed delivery, you get out in front of, strike 1 on Vizcaino. Jose with one of the Mets' 4 hits, a single that came in the 5th inning. Mets with a run in, 1 down. Bronya could not move up. He remains on at first base here with 1 away. You see the offensive production from the Mets shortstop during the last 44 games. Fouls off the low heat, 0-2. Joe Orsulak's 4th sacrifice fly has given the Mets a 2-1 lead here in the bottom half of the 7th inning. Vizcaino trying to keep this inning alive. 0-2 count on him. 1 away, infield at double play depth. Down the first. first and foul. Ray Miller, the pitching coach. He and Leland confer all the time over there on status of where they are pitching-wise in a game. 0-2 count. And Vizcaino's got himself a base hit. Brogna will stop at second base. Orlando Merced getting it back in, and Vizcaino's 2 for 3. And the Mets have 2 on with 1 away.
Catcher Alberto Castillo.
Wagner checking on coverage in the infield here. Alberto Castillo coming to the plate, the Mets catcher.
We talked earlier in the game about how Carl Everett was timid charging a ball. Well, Orlando Merced anything but timid. He gets to the ball in a hurry, and usually that stops the base runner.
Castillo fouls it back. Encarnacion, the catcher's gone out to talk. Castillo will wait. Runner at second base may have been a cross-up on the signs. Castillo, first major league action this season for the Mets. It's the 8th game that he has appeared in. He's picked up 1 hit. 0 for 2 in this game. He has struck out twice. 25-year-old catcher. 0-1 delivery to him. And Wagner has overpowered him in his at-bats today. Not been able to catch up to the fastball, and behind 0-2 here. Two on, 1 away. 1 ball, 2 strikes, and Castillo. Isringhausen, due up next, is already out in the on-deck circle to take an at-bat with no warm-up. Well, I guess Mets bullpen would be ready if needed. They had 2 up earlier. Nobody throwing at the moment. Chopped off into the seats, holds the count at a ball and 2 strikes. One ball, 2 strikes, 1 out. Castillo will step out. Rico Brogna, the lead runner, goes back to second base. Vizcaino on at first. Mets leading at 2-1, 7th inning, a run in here. Mets have scored each of the last 2 innings after the Pirates got theirs in the 4th. 1-2 delivery. Stays alive on the fastball, just getting enough to foul it back.
I think you do Castillo a favor if you're Paul Wagner by throwing him something other than the fastball. As you said, Gary, he has just blown Castillo away. Throw him a breaking ball. What you do is speed up the bat.
Castillo reaching, gets that one to short, played by Bell. Nice play to Lariano. Jay Bell, 1 to get there, and 2 the long throw back. 2 down. Brogna moves to third.
Interesting to note that this is Bell's only play. He has no play at first. Good footwork right there. And they had Vizcaino easily at second base. Fine play by Jay Bell.
That'll help out Paul Wagner, the pitcher. Now there are 2 down, runners at first and third. And Jason Isringhausen looking for his first major league hit. 0 for 2 today. 0 for 7 in his chances. The Mets up 2-1, a chance for an RBI here with Rico Brogna on at third base. Wagner's numbers today very impressive. The only win he has this season came back on May 26 against Colorado. 1-10 for Wagner. Isringhausen 1-1. Wagner non-decisioned in his last 2 starts. 5 losses in a row before that. 1-1 delivery. Isringhausen pops it up behind the mound. Bell, the shortstop, puts it away. And that'll do it. But the Mets able to come up with a run on 3 hits, leave a couple on, and take the lead as you take a look at your Honda line score after 7. We'll be back right after this message.
It's an outdoor sports auction on Saturday, August the 5th at Shea's Future Mets Gate. Items up for bid include a Mark Grace jersey, Bob Gibson baseball, and a baseball bat and home plate autographed by the Mets. There will also be a special auction just for kids. Proceeds will go to the Leukemia Society. That's the Mets Wives Sports Auction at Shea Stadium, Saturday, August 5th, starting at 5:30.
Joe Orsulak stays in the game in left field for Damon Buford, for whom he hit. Jason Isringhausen now with a 2-1 lead to work with. He's looking for his first major league win, and this is his 3rd start. He has walked 3, 1 intentionally, and has struck out 4. Isringhausen, of course, working at both AA and AAA this season at a combined 11-2 mark in the minors before the Mets made the call. Non-decisioned in his first 2 starts, with the Mets going 1-1 in those games, leading this one 2-1. And we go to the 8th inning. Jay Bell will be leading it off against the young 22 right-hander. 0 for 3 for Bell, 0 for his last 12. As the struggle for Jay Bell continues. Batting at just .232. Hello. Ball 1.
Don't ask for whom the bell tolls. It almost tolled for Jay then. Looked like he knuckle curve got away from Isringhausen over the head of Jay Bell.
Kind of floated in there that time. 1-0 delivery. Missed the outside with it. 2 balls and no strikes. Bell, Merced, and Johnson 2, 3, 4 in the Pirate lineup here in the 8th inning. Another one of those pop-ups, and again it's Rico Brogna. Jeff Kent right behind him. Brogna puts it away. Bell's retired. 1 down.
Right fielder Orlando.
So as they were early in the game, the Pirates are still having trouble with that Isringhausen fastball. The only inning they got to him was in the 4th, where he gave up a 1-out double to Merced, and then back-to-back singles by Johnson and Lariano.
The only guy who's been on the fastball of Isringhausen this afternoon is the guy who's at the plate right now, Orlando Merced.
2 for 3, scored the only Pirate run in that 4th inning. Boy, that play by Mark Johnson when he got thrown out by Butler looms large right now.
Sure does.
Back in that 4th inning, Johnson ran into the Mets catcher Alberto Castillo when he had home plate wide open. If he'd gone for the plate instead of the catcher, would have scored easily. He didn't, and ended up being out. Merced's upped his average now to .293. He's had a very good series. 6 hits in 11 at-bats. Toyota American League scoreboard for you. And he's still on. Butler hauls it in. Line drive to center field.
When Andy Van Slyke was with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Andy used to have a lathe in his home. And he would actually take Merced's bats back to his home and, trying to think of the word, well, he'd put them in their lathe, in his lathe, and grind it down to make the handle smaller. And Orlando, absolutely, I mean, Andy Van Slyke serving more of a purpose other than just a great center fielder for the Pirates. But he was very instrumental, and Merced loved the way that Van Slyke treated his bats.
Mark Johnson. You won't find many major league players with a wood lathe in their own home to use on baseball bats.
That's right.
And if there was going to be one, Andy Van Slyke, yeah, he'd be the one.
Andy's got the interesting sidelines with a lot of things.
Mark Johnson takes that one up near the bill of the cap. 2 balls and 1 strike on the big first baseman. Bill Pulsifer, who's charting the game, will make the start for the Mets tomorrow night in the wrap-up of the 4-game series against these Pirates. 2-1 delivery. Breaking ball. Foul back, 2-2.
It's a good sign for a pitcher when you see a lot of hitters shaking their heads. Pitching coaches love to see that.
2-2 delivery. Been able to keep the hitters off stride here today. That knuckle curveball that comes at varying speeds is tough for the hitters to line up when they also have to be concerned about that very good fastball. Inside to him. Isringhausen shows no inclination away from coming inside on hitters. He'll
Another
bring it.
Good sign.
He'll bring it in there. 2 down, bases empty.
Fastball away here, Gary.
3-2. 5 strikeouts for Jason Isringhausen, who retires the side in order, protecting the Mets' 1-run lead. Now this from Bell Atlantic.
Baseline. Jay Bell heard the call and throws out Alfonso. But the first time with the hit and run, Liriano was covering. And this time the Pirates had Jay Bell covering, and he was the right guy to cover.
Ball was headed right up the middle, right where Bell moved to cover second base. So quickly 2 down. And Carl Everett, who's batting third, 0 for 3, does have his 10th RBI, though, in that fielder's choice play that came in the 6th inning. Paul Wagner continuing to pitch an impressive game, but he is down in this ball game 2-1. He has not thrown a complete game this season. He may throw a complete game and lose it here. Swung on and missed. The Pirates starters have only 3 wins since the All-Star break as you look at the Mets bullpen. Franco, the left-hander, DePoto closest to second base. Nelson Liriano, and that'll do it. So Everett is retired. We've completed 8 at Shea Stadium. The Mets lead it. Pirates get a chance in the 9th. Now this word from 9X.
Isringhausen is out of there with a 2-1 lead. You talk about a guy who is firing into the pillbox right now. It's Dallas Green. John Franco, who lost the game on Friday night. He won the game last night, but a blown save in the process, giving up a double to Nelson Liriano. The night before, Liriano tied the game on Friday. And who leads it off in the 9th inning? Nelson Liriano. How about that? Well, you know, if you're Dallas Green, you're probably thinking, look, John Franco, as long as he's with the team, is our closer. Isringhausen's had enough. I want to give him a chance to win the game. Franco's the guy. Crowd booing him last night. The crowd booed him on Friday night. So he's the man, sink or swim.
He's here to do this, save ball games, and Dallas Green, as you say, Timmy, if he's going to be here, that's what he's supposed to do. He also destroyed the clubhouse after the game last night.
Yeah, I heard that.
Tore it up. Even though he got the win, that blown save cost Brett Saberhagen a W. Here is Nelson Liriano fouling it off. Liriano with a single in 3 at-bats has continued his hit streak to 5 games. Has faced John Franco twice in his career. Timmy already told you they both came in this series, and he's 2 for 2.
That's the one thing he didn't do last night. Come inside for the right-hander Liriano. Actually, Liriano hit a good pitch last night over the head of Brett Butler to score the tying run. Steve Pugliese in the 9th inning.
Liriano, a switch hitter, the 0-2, just missed inside again. 1 ball, 2 strikes on the veteran 31-year-old Nelson Liriano. 259 career hitter, batting .286 this season.
Wants
1 ball,
come in
2
again.
strikes.
Excuse me, Gary.
Where he wants it. He's getting it there.
3 times in a row did he come inside to Nelson Lariano.
9th inning, 2-1 ball game. Mets on top. Lariano to be followed by Al Martin and Wainer, the schedule due up. Fake him in, move out. Got him.
Here it is again. Keep it away. Fastball after coming inside 3 times. Pounds the glove 3 times. And accurately called, my friend.
Look at Bill Pulsiver's first major league win. 2 outs away potentially here for Isringhausen. Steve Pegues is the pinch hitter. Pegues batting for Al Martin. And Franco again on that inside corner. See his numbers versus the Pirates. Pegues, another one of those who picked up a hit against Franco. Last night's game with 2 down. The 0-2 delivery jammed him again. Vizcaino. 2 down.
Kind of seeing the method to John Franco today. Saying, you guys aren't going to lean out over the plate anymore off of me. Pegues with a base hit last night. He scored the tying run on a ball away. And Franco, for the 5th time in 2 hitters, comes inside with a strike.
2 down, bases empty, 9th inning. And the Mets leading at 2-1. John Wainer will take his time at the plate against Franco. Outside corner strike call. Roberto Castillo working behind the plate. One ball, 1 strike. Each team 6 hits in the game. Paul Wagner, tremendous start. Could lose his 11th game here today. 1 and 2. So the young man waits. Jason Isringhausen, the 22-year-old, looking for his first major league win if John Franco can pick up the save, and they are up at Shea. Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 down. Right field. Everett waiting, and Isringhausen's got a W. Franco with a little redemption here today. It'll be his 12th save of the season. And you know how badly he wanted that one. And for Paul Wagner, what a tough loss, a complete game loss. He goes 1-11.
Good game that could have gone either way. Think about the Mark Johnson play. That was back in the 4th inning when Johnson came out of the baseline to hit Alberto Castillo when home plate was clearly in front of him, and then the fielder's choice play where Everett was just safe at first base. The little things in baseball could turn it around that did today.
Jason Isringhausen, in his 3rd start, gets his first win. That's the fly ball to right, and that's the W. And right there, Brett Saberhagen, the veteran, the first to congratulate him. John Franco with the young catcher behind the plate.
Alberto's probably saying, man, a win? You're slapping me on the helmet? Well, this isn't football. What's going on?
That hurt.
Yeah, right.
Mets have won the last two as they beat the Pirates. Final here, 2-1. We'll be back after this from Molson Ice. So no, the Pirates won 6-0. Another one-run ball game, and the Mets put 2 in a row away in our Nobody Beats the Wiz game summary. What a tough loss for Paul Wagner.
Paul Wagner with 7 strong innings. Orlando Merced, actually that was 8 strong innings for Paul Wagner. 5 runners left with Pittsburgh. Jason Isringhausen, the big story. The winning pitcher today, his first major league win, John Franco with his 12th save. But the little things we do together, you remember that Stephen Sondheim song from Company? It's the little things that happen in baseball games that really can win or lose games. Mark Johnson in the 4th inning, and then the fielder's choice, Carl Everett, really busting it to first base and picking up an RBI to tie the game in the 6th.
Mark Johnson's going to have a lot to explain on that one to himself as to why he gave up an unmolested run at home plate. I mean, if he'd just gone for the plate and not tried to hit Castillo, it would have been the 2nd run for the Pirates, but for some reason was more concerned about the collision than the run. Yeah,
I mean, it was like he went out of the way to get contact. We were kidding about it, but it was very unusual because home plate was open, and he didn't have to go for the outside of home plate, just slide straight in, and they have the 2nd marker of the day.
Mets will take it. He didn't do it, so the Mets get the win. Our Budweiser player of the game when we come back after this from Budweiser. It's the Pirates' final 2-1. Our Budweiser player of the game with his first major league win. What a performance by 22-year-old Jason Isringhausen, going 8 innings in this game. A run on 6 hits, walked 3, 1 intentional, 5 strikeouts. Yeah, you're excited.
I'll say. A lot more to come, too.
Nice to see Brett Saberhagen with a congratulations for our Budweiser player of the game. Right back after this from Federal Express.
With loss number 11. Topsy-turvy day here at Shea as the Mets win it 2-1. Mets Baseball 95 has been brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers who reminds you friends know when to say when. By Bell Atlantic, the Yellow Pages 9 out of 10 people use the genuine Bell Atlantic Yellow Pages. By the new Sunoco MasterCard that can earn you free Sunoco gasoline. And by Roy Rogers. Come in today for Roy's original roast beef sandwich. Best roast beef in town. Fans, be with us again on Thursday, August 3rd. That's this Thursday at 7:30 from Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati when the Mets travel to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Reds. Closed captioning of today's game has been underwritten by the U.S. Department of Education. Mets Baseball 95 is produced and directed by Jeff Mitchell. Our associate producer, unfortunately we're stuck with him, Steve Olbaum. Associate Director John Calabrese. And as always, our executive producer is Rick Miner. You love it too, Obi. There's Rick Miner. And this has been a presentation of WWOR-TV, UPN 9 Sports. For Gary Thorne, I'm Tim McCarver. Good day, everybody.